Okay, so today we're going to do something, well, it's kind of the same, but it's a little bit different. I want to talk about adapting lenses to digital cameras. And when I say lenses, I mean classic lenses. So SLR or rangefinder lenses from film cameras adapted to digital cameras. In my case, it's obviously going to be Fujifilm X series cameras, but a lot of the stuff involved applies to any interchangeable lens camera. You can get adapters for pretty much every lens mount for old lenses and also to adapt to new digital bodies. The first lens I want to have a look at, and I have like a lot of manual old film camera lenses, so I wanted to do something like a little less common for my first one, and it is, I've got it here on my XA1. This is a Contax mount lens, Contax Yashica, so it's a CY mount. It's a Zeiss Planar 50mm f1.7. Let's see if you can get a look at it there. It is, I gotta get some front lighting here. My lighting's very, hang on. There we go, that's better. Okay, I moved my lighting just a hair. You're gonna see some reflections of my glasses, but hey, that's life. So it's a Zeiss 50mm f1.7 Planar. It's a CY mount, so Contax Yashica. I got this lens attached to a Contax 159mm, 158mm film SLR. A pretty good camera, really. Automatic exposure. This lens on it works quite well. But, you know, this isn't the fastest lens. A lot of my 50mm are f1.4. That tends to be what I go for when I look for 50mm lenses. But being a Zeiss lens, I thought, that's got to be pretty good, right? So the way it works is you've got your Fuji X series body or any other digital camera body, and this is the lens with the adapter. So how this works is you've got your X series mount right there, and then on the back of this is the adapter. So from here backwards, that's the adapter. I'll take that off and show you what that looks like. So this is the adapter itself. It's got the CY mount on the front and the FX mount on the back. It has the red dot that you might be able to see there, that you line up with the red dot on your Fuji X series camera. So just like you would on a lens, you put it on and you click it on in the bayonet just like a lens. So that gives you the proper flange distance to your center that the original Contax camera would have had to the film. That's why, you know, SLRs are quite a bit thicker than mirrorless cameras, so you're going to have a lot bigger flange distance. And then mounting the lens onto the adapter is just like mounting it onto the old film camera. There's probably marks, just like anything. Yep, so two red dots, you line them up, and you click it into place, and there you go. You've got a Contax lens mounted to your Fujifilm mirrorless body. You have to go into your menus and you have to find shoot without lens, and you have to enable that. And it also helps, there's a setting in the menus to put in what focal length your manual lens is, and it helps with, I think it helps with shape correction, because Fujifilm native lenses, they automatically correct for some distortion. So wide angle lenses, it just helps with a lot of stuff. So if you tell it what the focal length is, you'll end up with a better image. You're gonna wanna set your camera to manual focus. So depending on which camera you have, on the X-T20 that I'm filming with, it's a switch right on the front of the camera. In this camera, I've set this function button right here beside the shutter button to be where I change what focus mode I'm using. So I click that button and then I just use the D-pad on the back to select manual focus. There are a couple ways to manually focus with these cameras. I prefer to use focus peaking in red and on the high setting. I find that that's more visible through most everyday scenarios. There's a digital split prism you can use in some of the newer bodies that works really well. Also, I just prefer the focus peaking to the split prism. I find it works better for the way that I shoot. Okay, so this particular lens, how did it perform? I took it to a few different places. I went to like a hipster sort of craft market with my wife and my daughter a couple of weekends ago and did some indoor shooting with it. I find that wide open, this lens actually has a lot of color fringing, so purple edges around the highlights, a little more than I was expecting given that it's a Zeiss lens, but I mean, it's not that new either. I think it's from the 80s, maybe in the 70s, maybe the 70s, or is it the 80s? I'll put down below when this lens was released. But it's still pretty sharp, wide open, not as sharp as a modern lens, but it gives that sort of vintage feel to your photos, an almost film-like quality, and when combined with a Fujifilm X series camera and their film simulations, it's very, very nice. Stop down to about f2.8, the color fringing goes away, the sharpness is increased exponentially to the point where it would be hard to tell this apart from a modern autofocus lens if you get the focus right, which is, again, a whole nother aspect of shooting with manual lenses. I also took this thing with me to a local park, Minnetonka Regional Park, which is around a marsh and up a bit of a mountain hike. And was it a mountain? It's just a big hill, but I'm pretty out of shape, so it felt like a mountain. Did some low light shooting, some landscapes, not really landscapes because it's 50mm and I was like in the trees, but yeah, I think it performed really well. I think the colors this lens produces are very nice. They're slightly different. So when you shoot film simulations in Fujifilm and you use their native lenses, you know what you're going to get for your colors. But when you use vintage lenses, it shifts those colors around a little, and I find that the shift on this is very pleasing. They're just a little bit warmer than the pre-baked in film simulations that come in the camera. The shooting in black and white with this lens was a treat, and I think that if you were to get this lens, that would be the place where you would want to stick to, is shooting black and white. The colors are nice, but you get no color fringing, obviously, if you're shooting in black and white because there's no colors. Yeah, so just, again, a super quick review of a classic Carl Zeiss lens adapted to shoot with Fujifilm X series bodies. These principles apply to every interchangeable lens digital system. They all have an option to shoot with manual lenses, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I've shot with Nikon and Panasonic and Pentax digital cameras. I really haven't done a ton with Canon interchangeable lens gear. I have some fixed lens stuff from Canon that's modern, but nothing interchangeable. So, but I would assume that it's totally doable. I see people shooting with Canon gear and manual lenses all the time. So I'm sure there's other videos that can show you your specific camera brand and what settings to use to shoot with a manual lens. It shouldn't be that hard to do. I know with Pentax it was actually a bit of a pain in the ass, much easier on the Fuji system, but that's just a general rule about Pentax. That should be their tagline. Pentax, we're a pain in the ass. Yeah, I got a bunch more adapters over here. I think probably my most common one would be M42 mount, which is an old screw mount that Pentax used to use. Got a ton of those lenses. Oh, sorry. One very important detail that I forgot to mention. This is a full frame lens. This is a crop sensor, so APS-C sensor. So you are losing, you're losing the edges of the image around that full frame size, just because this is a smaller sensor with a lens for a larger sensor or film attached to it. There are adapters that actually have an element inside them. They're either called focal reducers or speed boosters, depending on who you buy them from, that will take that image and focus it into an APS-C sized picture. I don't have one of those yet. I'm going to get one for M42. It actually takes, so it would take this f1.7 lens and lower the f-stop. I'm not sure what the actual math is, but you know, maybe 1.5, 1.4. So it actually makes the lens faster and you get the full 50mm. It's not an equivalent anymore. It's actually like shooting a 50mm lens on a full frame camera. So that's pretty interesting to me. But these dumb adapters, as a lot of people call them, they just take the lens and make the flange distance proper so you can focus them, but you will lose that crop of that image from full frame to APS-C. So do keep that in mind. I think that makes this like a 75mm lens instead of a 50 because it's a 1.5 times crop. It still works. It's really good for portraits, and I found it actually really interesting focal length just in general. I don't know, 75. What do you guys think? Thanks for watching. I really appreciate all the feedback on the last 2 or 3 videos I've done, and any of the ones before that, really. But I've had a lot on the last couple that I've made. I'm going to be doing a couple of more adapted lens videos coming up. I've also got a review coming on an old film camera. I've shot a couple of rolls through this Minolta X700. I shot a roll of Fujifilm Pro 400H color negative film and Japan Camera Hunter Street Pan 400 black and white film. And speaking of film, I don't know where the camera is, it's back there somewhere. I finally got a roll of the brand new Kodak Ektachrome. I picked it up yesterday from Leo's Cameras in Vancouver. So Leo's, thank you for holding that for me. I really appreciate it. I've got 2 more shots to take on it. I took 34 shots on my Minolta Maxim 700, and then my batteries died, so I put some new batteries in it. I've got 2 more shots to take. I'll have that off to the lab, and we'll be doing that Ektachrome review very soon. I'm really excited. New film. New film! It's 2018 and we're getting new film. It's fantastic. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.